Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and absolutely dismantle the myth of natural talent. We're going to see how literally anyone can master complex subjects. Seriously, if you've ever stared at a dense textbook or some incredibly complicated piece of software or difficult equation and thought, man, my brain just isn't wired for this, you are definitely not alone. Society really loves this idea of the innate genius, right? That person who just understands things effortlessly. But today, we're going to look closely at the actual science of learning, drawing on some amazing insights from engineering professor Barbara Oakley. We're going to prove that mastering difficult subjects isn't about the brain you were born with. It's entirely about how you use the tools you already have.
So, is math really just a natural talent? It's a massive question because it challenges this deeply held belief that we're either born with STEM skills or we just aren't. Too many of us decide super early on in our academic lives that we simply aren't math people or science people. We kind of treat these subjects like they're exclusive clubs with strict biological entry requirements. We assume that if it doesn't come easily to us right out of the gate, well, we must just lack the natural talent to succeed. But as we're about to explore this whole binary way of thinking, it's not just incredibly limiting, it's actually completely scientifically inaccurate.
Take the incredibly inspiring trajectory of Barbara Oakley, for example. She went from totally failing high school math to becoming an actual engineering professor, simply by learning how to learn. As a young student, Barbara literally flunked out of elementary, middle, and high school math and science. She was so completely convinced she lacked natural talent that she swore off those subjects entirely. She joined the military, became a Russian translator, and figured that was that. But when she re-entered civilian life, she saw the immense career opportunities that math and science provided. So, at age 26, despite all her deeply ingrained beliefs, she decided to tackle them. But here's the kicker. She knew she couldn't just stare blankly at the books. She had to first learn how to learn. By mastering specific learning techniques, math and science actually started getting easier. She started enjoying them. And she eventually reached the absolute pinnacle of academia as an engineering professor. How wild is that?
Okay, section 1, the science of learning. Two modes of thinking. It turns out our brains are equipped with two totally distinct gears, and the real secret to mastering difficult concepts is knowing exactly when and how to shift between them. First up is focus mode. This is where your attention is highly concentrated. It's logical, it's sequential, and it operates right there in the front of your brain, in the prefrontal cortex. Think of it like a flashlight with a really tight, intense beam shining directly on one tiny specific spot. But on the flip side, we have the diffuse mode. This is a state of relaxed attention, kind of like daydreaming. Instead of staying localized, your brain activity is just bouncing around multiple regions. Going back to our analogy, this is a flashlight with a wide, soft glow that illuminates the whole room. In this state, you aren't actually thinking about any one thing in particular, which is exactly what allows your subconscious to make massive leaps in problem solving by comparing new ideas to a whole lifetime of stored knowledge.
And neuroscientists actually confirm that this duality stems straight from our evolutionary history. Back in the day, hunter-gatherers had to focus intently on foraging while subconsciously scanning for a wide range of threats. It makes perfect evolutionary sense why we have these two modes. Imagine our ancestors out gathering food. They desperately needed that tight, logical focus mode to identify the exact right berries or track an animal. But if they only ever used focus mode, they'd be entirely oblivious to their surroundings. They had to occasionally expand their awareness, using the diffuse mode to casually scan for a wide range of possible predators. Basically, the humans who survived and passed down their genes were the ones who developed the ability to seamlessly and routinely switch between hyperfocus and broad, relaxed awareness.
Moving on to section 2, how to switch modes. Mobilizing focus. So knowing these modes exist is great and all, but the real magic happens when you intentionally harness them. The absolute most effective way to learn something new is to actively orchestrate periods of focus mode followed by periods of diffuse mode. You have to take all those raw ideas gathered during intense concentration and give them the breathing room to bounce around your brain. So how do we trigger that initial essential focus? Oakley highly recommends the Pomodoro method. It's this brilliant, simple 3-step process to push through the initial pain of concentration. First, you absolutely must block out all distractions. Put the phone in another room, close all those extra browser tabs, just get rid of them. Second, set a timer for exactly 25 minutes and commit to taking action on just one thing. Now, fair warning, at first, this focused effort is gonna feel painful or uncomfortable. That's completely normal. But if you commit to the timer, you will successfully mobilize your focus mode. Finally, when that timer goes off, you reward yourself with a 5-minute break before diving right back in.
All right, section 3, the art of quitting. activating the subconscious. But here's the million-dollar question. What happens when you inevitably hit a wall of frustration and just get completely stuck during your study session? You know the feeling. You've done your 25 minutes, maybe even a few rounds of it, but that math problem still makes zero sense. The natural instinct for a lot of us is to try and force it, right? To basically brute force a solution through sheer willpower. While cognitive science tells us this is actually the absolute worst thing you can do. When you hit that wall of confusion, it is time to do something totally counterintuitive. Instead of pushing harder, best-selling author Nassim Taleb takes a completely different approach. He actually says he never gets writer's block, because the very minute he's stuck, he stops making an effort. He just goes for a walk. By physically stepping away and letting his mind wander, he completely shuts off the prefrontal cortex's focus mode and flips the switch on the wide-beamed flashlight of the diffuse mode. While he's out walking, his subconscious goes to work. It quietly connects the dots. And when he finally sits back down, the insights just pour out on their own. Taking a break isn't lazy. It's literally the most crucial part of achieving a breakthrough. Get this. Even Thomas Edison used this biological hack. He would deliberately fall asleep with ball bearings in his hands so the clatter would wake him up the exact moment his diffuse mode generated a breakthrough. Think about how insanely brilliant this is. Whenever Edison reached a really tough, seemingly unsolvable problem, he didn't just sit at his desk tearing his hair out. No. He sat in a chair, held 2 metal ball bearings in his hand, and allowed himself to just doze off. As he drifted into that twilight state, which is basically the ultimate diffuse mode, his muscles would relax. The ball bearings would slip from his fingers, hit the floor with a loud bang, and wake him up. This perfectly timed trigger snapped him back into focus mode right at the precise moment his subconscious had generated a new insight or a totally fresh understanding of the problem. So, to wrap our heads around all this, how well you learn really isn't about natural talent. It's determined by how effectively you switch gears. On one hand, you've got intense focus. That means blocking out the world, using your 25-minute timer, and really pushing your prefrontal cortex to its limits until you inevitably hit a wall of frustration. But then, on the other hand, you have guilt-free quitting. Once you hit that wall, you have got to step away. Go for a walk, take a quick nap, let your mind wander completely, and most importantly, do not feel a single ounce of guilt about it. It is your brain's totally natural evolutionary way of learning. By passing information back and forth between these two modes, you can master literally any material, no matter how difficult or completely unnatural it might seem to you at first. So now that you actually know the true formula for unlocking your brain's potential, what seemingly impossible subject are you going to conquer next? We've seen how Barbara Oakley went from literally flunking math to teaching engineering. We've seen how historical geniuses and modern authors rely on this exact same neurological rhythm. The whole myth of the natural-born genius, consider that officially busted. The power to learn is entirely in your hands, in your 25-minute timer, and in your willingness to just walk away when things get tough. So go look at that intimidating book, that daunting new skill, or that incredibly complex software. Fire up your focus, embrace your diffuse mode, and just start learning.